Coverage. Investigator Amy Cutler is covering what this means for reforms at Phoenix Police moving forward. Sarah Robinson talking with city leaders. First, let's begin with Alexis Dominguez, who spent the day getting reaction from community members and activists.
Yeah, that's right. So this whole case really started after many people came forward saying that their civil rights had been violated. Drayvon Ames' encounter with Phoenix police drew national scrutiny about 6 years ago. We talked to him last summer when the DOJ reported their findings. He told us then he felt validated in his feelings that police used excessive force with him. But today he shared a much different sentiment. Now, if you take a look at this video from 2019, it shows Phoenix officers pointing guns and screaming at Ames, his pregnant wife, and kids. His family was stopped after police say their 4-year-old stole a doll from a dollar store. The case focused attention on Phoenix police for having one of the highest shooting rates in the country. Ames did eventually receive a payout from the city, and no charges were ever filed against him, but at least one officer was fired. Last June, the DOJ found there was a trend among Phoenix officers of excessive force, violating civil rights and discriminating against minorities and the homeless. At that time, Ames said he was hopeful that the findings would bring change. Do you think that the Phoenix Police Department has implemented enough changes for this to not happen again?
There's still people who are having guns pointed at them. Every other day you hear it on the news, someone's being shot by the police, and there really hasn't been any changes.
How do you think other people feel knowing that the DOJ investigation has now been closed?
Honestly, I am afraid. I'm afraid that there's going to be rogue police, you know, that they're going to feel that they can do whatever they want, and then there's going to be more national big cases of police brutality.
Now, coming up at 6, I'll have more reaction from civil rights leaders in the community, and then we'll also have more reaction from Ames. Again, that's coming up at 6. Reporting live here in Phoenix, Alexis Dominguez for Arizona's Family.
Alexis, thanks. And in wake of the original findings, Phoenix police made a series of reforms, a new excessive force policy, new training, new liaisons to the city's office on the homeless, and reviewing the use of force in those cases.
The city leaders say the department is always open to reform and pushing to move forward in a way that keeps communities safe. Many say they are thrilled the report has been officially rescinded. Sarah Robinson here with more reaction from city leaders who fought against a consent decree from the get-go. Sarah.
Yeah, that is right. City councilors tell me that they believe this news is going to save taxpayers hundreds of millions of dollars. Now, that's because the Biden-era DOJ wanted to enter the city, into something called a consent decree. Now, that requires a federal monitor, and that can be very expensive. Now, the president of the Phoenix Law Enforcement Association also tells me that he believes consent decrees actually make communities less safe because they decrease morale, which bleeds into recruitment and retention. Now, Phoenix Police is already down hundreds of officers. The DOJ report being dropped is welcome news for officers who feel like they have been vindicated and are breathing a sigh of relief tonight.
We are always assessing ways to serve our community better and are always trying to improve. We've never been against, any type of reform or ways to do this job better and serve our community better. But it just needs to make sense, right? It doesn't need to involve hundreds of millions of dollars in wasted taxpayer money for a federal monitor or a federal judge to tell us how our community wants us to police.
The city manager says since the Biden-era DOJ launched its probe, the city has spent over $13.1 million on costs associated with this investigation. Now, coming up at 6, I'll have more on how City Council and the police department are working on reforms and what those reforms include. For now in Phoenix, I'm Sarah Robinson for Arizona's Family.
Sarah, thank you. There are so many moving parts to this story. Investigative reporter Amy Cutler's here. You've been covering this and looking into it for years now.
Both Phoenix PD and MCSO. So what does this say about the larger investigation at Phoenix PD and the reforms that they've already made down at the department?
Yeah, some big questions there. First off, we want to mention this DOJ report. We've reported on some issues with it. At points it was vague, so we want to point that out. But we also want to mention city leaders had admitted that changes at Phoenix PD were needed. So this is really more of a matter of a shift in the Trump administration and their focus rather than an out and out message on the report itself.
Yeah, because the police union put together this whole report saying in that 126 pages, 134 incidents, 97% of them were taken out of context. So time is one thing that it took the city to fight this and get tied up in court. The cost of it is another.
Yeah, exactly right. Sarah had mentioned $13.1 million.
Crazy.
That's just through December 2024. And we know that the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office has spent more than $300 million. So there's a lot of expense with all of this.
Is there any thought? I mean, I could see people at the sheriff's office wondering if they could be next. I mean, they've been under this consent decree down at the sheriff's office from the Arpaio days a decade ago.
Yeah, and that is a very good question. Unfortunately, they're two very different cases. When it comes to the sheriff's office, that case is further along. It's in front of a judge. You've got a plaintiff, that's the DOJ, but also the ACLU. And so because of that, while the DOJ could change its position on this, the ACLU is much less likely to do that. And so given that, the case doesn't appear to be going anywhere.
More complex, involving the parties, the different parties involved there.
Yeah, no kidding, because we just take a look at how many players have gone on with this. And there are still so many layers in this, because with the 7 departments that Phoenix is a part of, those are the cases that were under investigation. But the Trump administration is also removing the consent decrees from departments that already said, yes, we'll follow along. You can welcome a monitor into our office. But that's so different from what's happening with MCSO.
Exactly. And this is just such a huge shift in policy here. You know, we spoke with some former DOJ attorneys who said, you know, this is really the meat of what the Civil Rights Division had done. And now it appears with this new administration, there's just a change and a shift of what they're focused on.
Amy Cutler, thank you.